I might be your software consultant. For those who do not know who I am well, I'm a colleague of the other consultants that actually are helping you with your accounts. We welcome you here today. We're going to talk a little bit about classified advertising. And so from the classified advertising standpoint here, we will talk a little bit about the classified rate card setup. We'll also talk about the different types of classified rate cards. In addition, some of the reporting that's done, and then we will wrap up with the InDesign export on how to actually create that template and get that template working so that it's seamless from bringing the information and the data that you can export out from our system directly into InDesign. We're excited about the setup itself of some of the options from a classified standpoint for both our newspaper as well as our magazine clients. But before we start, we do want to give you a little bit of housekeeping here, some information. Just as a reminder, today's webinar is for the users that are interested in the classified ads. If you happen to be on this webinar and you are not interested in classified ads, you can still enjoy my nasal voice for the next couple of minutes there, so that would be great. And by the way, as a participant, you are in listen-only mode, so just kind of keep that in mind. There is a question window in which you can have, if you have any inquiries during the actual webinar itself, and we will respond to those when we can. And in addition to that, this webinar, like all of our webinars, is going to be recorded, and that recording will be available under the past webinars area. And where is that past webinars area? Where is that help area? Well, I'm glad that everyone asked, because I'm going to show you that right off the bat here. Always a good reminder. We are currently logged into the consultant site, and this is sort of our testing site for the rest of the accounts, the account executives here, the software consultants. Just up here in the upper right-hand side, where there's the blue circle with the white question mark, that is our help area. If you do click on the help area itself, there's a lot of information regarding our company, as well as some frequently asked questions, some information regarding some of our reports as well. Specifically here over there on the left-hand side, there is a Learning Center videos area. Now the Learning Center videos area is quite nice, and if you're like me, and if you ever have maybe a question that you need answered pretty quickly, if somebody's ever said, hey Dennis, go ahead and watch this hour-long video to find the answer to that question, I usually do two things. The first thing is that I immediately remove them from my Outlook contacts. And then the second thing is that I hit them up with a dial tone that's very loud, because I do not have an hour to look for the answer to one question. And this is why this is a very nice area in our section here for Learning Center videos, is because each of these videos is actually segmented according to different sections within the software. So for example, in regards to the sales area, each one of these links is about a 6 to 7 minute long tops video. So you can look for the specific answer to a question there for any of these different segments, from management, also from our Digital Studio area as well. They're very, very nice, and again, they're available for you as an administrator and also for your team. In addition to that, we do have the ability here, as I said, for our past webinars down here on the bottom left-hand side. You can easily click on the webinars area. There's the upcoming webinars, and there's also past webinars. All of the past webinars are listed according to different sections within the software as well. These are a little bit longer than those 6 to 7 minute videos, and in addition to that, like I said, they are labeled according to the actual section, the actual module, and there's also a nice little webinar Q&A, and that actually will bring forth a lot of the questions that were asked during the time of the webinar itself. Okay, so I highly recommend taking a look at that. You can see that area. In addition to that, if you do need to contact either myself, if I'm your software consultant, or any of the other fantastic software consultants, down here in the bottom left-hand side, there is a Contact Us. Very important is that with the Contact Us, you can easily go in and schedule time on any of our calendars by clicking on here to schedule time. Know that there is a time trade calendar that's set up there. Now, our time, if you do not have any free training, and a lot of you still do, you're entitled sometimes a minimum of 4 hours, depending on your plan, per year. But normally it is $125 per hour, 10-minute increments. Again, you probably have some free training available there. Just simply use this link. It'll allow you to continue and then put something on the calendar of that software consultant. Just as a quick aside, that picture of me where I'm smiling, so I look like a big goofball, that's because that's my second marriage, not my first marriage. I'll go ahead and close that. Now we'll get back to the actual site itself here, and again, we're on the consultant site. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit in regards to the classified rate cards and what the difference is. Now basically, the classifieds themselves, they're broken down into two different types, quote unquote, of classifieds. There are classified display ads, and there's classified line ads. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to take a look at some of those examples of those rate cards, and we have a couple of test ones here. And these test classified rate cards, let me just bring this down here. We have both the display and the classified line ads. We'll be using these two for today's call, and just to kind of give you a little bit of a explanation on the difference between both. The first one we're going to look at here is the classified display ad. And if we go ahead and click on the edit area. By the way, folks, I did get to the same area. If you've been a customer for us for a while, you do know to get to that rate card area, you can go to Management, Site Setup, and Website Setup. That will take you right there to the main area there, and just click on rate cards. This classified display ad does use column and inches, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the columns and inches and how that's set up a little bit differently than your actual line ads itself. In addition to that, this does not show any text or images. This is important because with the display ad itself, if you are using columns and inches, you are not actually leveraging template all the time. One of the things that does need to be displayed here and detailed out when you're using the columns and inches are just that, columns and inches that you use to go into your orders. So for example here, on this rate card, if I look at my ad sizes, I can see that traditionally from a print standpoint, you're probably familiar with ad sizes being, of course, your full page and your half page vertical, etc. In this case, we have different columns and inches that are actually separated out. Now on this side, we do have this also separated on this particular rate card according to a zone, inches and columns, or 2 zones, 3 zones, 4 zones, and 5 zones. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second when we look at the rates. But just suffice it to say is that you do need to make sure that this information is provided at the time of the rate card. In other words, so that the insertion order can actually flow correctly. Now from the columns and inches standpoint itself, this is a quantity-based rate card. And let me just get back to the main rate card info tab here and explain that. A quantity-based is going to take into account your columns times your inches and give you a rate on what that amount would be. So if you happen to have a 2-column ad or a 4-column ad, and then by the inches if they're a multiple of 1 or 1.5 or 2, etc., you can actually get to that same calculation easily by having it set as a quantity-based rate card. When we talk about the classified line ads here in just a little bit, you'll see the difference. In regards to the ad sizes, though, we do have our listing according to the zones. We also, of course, have represented our colors. If you do have black and white or spot color or color, you can add those in as selected. And remember, just like all rate cards, we're taking available listings on the left-hand side, which we've built out in our master list, and we've selected those and moved those over into this rate card. The frequencies, because this is a quantity-based rate card, may be as simple as just having a one-time frequency. Because remember, the calculation itself is going to be based on the columns and inches. Now here's where it gets interesting, is that just to the right of the ad frequencies, we do have the ad positions. I want you to think about from the side of classified, is that in our system with positions, normally from the print side you're thinking of a position as an inside front cover or an inside back cover, front cover, back cover, and so on. Something that is adding to that additional ad size to get you to where you want to be. Some people will order a full page, but they don't necessarily get a full page inside front cover. Well, in this classified rate card setup, Your positions are not going to be that. Your positions are actually going to be the main headings of that particular classified ad. So in this case, automotive or announcements, marketplace, employment, etc. These are the main headings of the actual ad. Now, conversely, since these, if you want to kind of look at it from the standpoint of a main niche or a broad description, almost like we use categories on the CRM side. From this side here for the main position, though, you can have special sections that are subsets of this. Now just let me show you again, automotive, all the way down to real estate. And again, in the special sections, there are many different types of automotive listings that you might have. So you can see that we've broken those down: autos, campers, RVs, autos, cars, autos, trucks, etc. You want to make sure that those are represented there, because all of that is going to be showing up on the production run sheet, which we'll see in just a little bit. And in addition to that, you also want to make sure that this is showing up for the template. So both the proposal template as well as the invoice template for the client to see. Okay? In addition, from the columns and inches side here, here's how this is set up. In this case, what we've done is we've had actually, all of these are actually over here on the available columns 1 through 6. And in this particular rate card example, we've only got the 4 columns. So you may only have 2 columns, let's say, on what you're using for your particular display ads. How many columns you do have, you want to make sure that those are represented here on this rate card. So in this case, we have 4 to start. And in addition to that, from the column side itself, from the inches side, we have the inches actually represented as well. Notice that the inches go from 1, 125, 150, 175, and so on. If you do not sell that by 1.25 or by 1.75, you don't have to have that. This is, again, just what is selected for this particular rate card. Over here, just to the right of the columns and inches, there is an adjustments area. And the adjustments kind of work the same way that they do currently on your print rate cards or even your digital rate cards. And that is if there is an adjustment on the actual rate that's being paid. So if you do have an initial rate for, let's say, a 2-column by 1.5, and let's say it's $22, okay, maybe if you have an adjustment, if it's also a color, or if it's also going to go across a couple zones, you can actually have that listed as well. And it looks like we've got 2 in there for display, classify, color, 3 zones. That would explain the test site there. No worries on that. But it does add to the actual initial rate. So you can get to that rate that you want, even if you're going off of a base column and inch. Okay? Now, the way that this is set up in regards to the rates itself and the way that that looks, as you can see that the rate card is actually very similar to how the existing rate cards are. Notice that on the zones and inches for one time, it's showing the price here. And again, it's also got this added to rate. Now this is actually going to be something that you're not really worried about in the case of the classified heading, because remember, the premium position, which is normally added to the rate on your print side, is actually being replaced by the main header of the classified. Again, it doesn't necessarily dictate an additional rate, so these would be blank here. The black and white, we've also got the color prices in here, and we also have the spot color prices in there as well. You can always update the rates the same way that you would do any other rate card that you already have in your system. Let me close that. Now, in addition to the classified display ad, the one thing to remember on this is that you are able to actually go forth and create those pretty easily. Like I said, even creating a rate card just like you would your normal setup itself, where you're creating the available options and then having those dragged over from selected to available, just making sure, though, that that rate type is set to a quantity. Now, if we go back to the list of rate cards here at the very bottom, and we scroll back down to our other example, which is for the classified line ads. Let's take a look at the difference here. The classified line ads does not use columns or inches, okay? What the classified line ads will do, though, is it is going to allow you to select the text image tab. And this is very important because when you're doing a line ad itself, most of the time you are expected to put the text in, and then probably if you want to maybe upload a picture Let's say if it's for a car for sale or something like that. You want to make sure that the classified line ads absolutely must have the Show Text Image tab selected, and again, they're not using the columns or inches. For the product side itself, we've actually got a test product we're going to show you here in just a little bit. But for the ad sizes are a little bit different. Because they're not display ads and they're line ads instead, this is actually showing what offerings do you have for them in regards to a line ad as opposed to display. You're not actually putting in all the zones, etc. But you are saying from, let's say if there's a set price for up to 25 words, or if it's up to 25 words with an image, you can have those prices actually represented. And the reason why, let me just go back here for just a second here with that rate card info. Notice that this rate type, it's not quantity-based. This is a flat rate. So unlike doing that actual value or doing that equation where we're multiplying the columns by the inches and receiving the price, this is going to be a flat rate. But the question now is, well, can I deviate from that rate? You sure can. If I go back into the ad sizes though, and again, up to 25 words or up to 25 words with an image, I also want to make sure that I populate out my ad color again. The frequency can still be, frequency can still be one time there. The ad positions, though, still remain consistent, the same way they are with the classified display ads. So again, the main heading, and in addition to that, the special sections, which again are subsets of the ad positions. Now, the column and inches does not really apply in this case, but the adjustments, this is where the adjustments are a little bit different, and they deviate from the classified display ad. In the line ads, it's if there's additional verbiage, or excuse me, additional words outside of that initial 25, like in this example. So if there's a 1 to 10 additional words, that's going to add an additional price to that, or 11 to 20, more than 20, and so on. Remember, with these rate cards, you can absolutely still adjust the rate. Some of the actual insertion orders themselves, if you're going in, and if you're familiar with our regular system for our quote-unquote regular rate card, you do have the ability to adjust the rate, whether it's a charge or a discount. That still will apply for these rate cards. Now, when it comes to using the rate cards themselves, if we went ahead, and I'm just going to go ahead and put in a quick insertion order here, and I'm going to use our dummy account. And with the dummy account itself, if I go ahead and I put in the order, I'm going to say a new order here and use print. With print itself, I'm going to go ahead and use newspaper for my product. And then I have the ability to choose which actual rate card that I want to use here. Well, since we're using these as the actual test, I'm going to go with the line ads first. And with the line ads, this is the HTML text interface that I was referring to. And so with the text interface itself, if I wanted to, I could actually put in a title for this particular classified ad. So I'm going to say Volkswagen thing for sale. Okay, why don't we go ahead and just make it even more specific. We'll say 1973. How about that? Perfect. All right. Underneath that, I can say low miles, a real beauty. That should be in marketing, huh? A real beauty? Wonderful. Low miles, a real beauty, won't last. There we go. Now, if I wanted to, I can also go in here and say, well, let's see, from that actual format itself, if I wanted to maybe make that all in blue, I can do that. Notice that for those that actually have some HTML experience, that's actually just giving it a blue border. So that information will actually show up in blue. And I could do a little preview here too, which is actually going to show that in blue as well. Of course, I can also go back in and I can back into the edit here. Because again, I was in the preview. I can also make that a order area if I wanted to preview that. Go back to that edit. So there's a number of different areas in here that I can actually change. I can even make that, let's see, well, let's see if we make it even bulleted. Okay. whatever I decide to do in there, I do have the opportunity, though, to make sure that that information is the body, right? It's the body of the actual ad itself and how I'm relaying that to the actual ad that I'm actually selling. I do have the ability to upload and preview an image as well. From the uploading and the previewing of the images itself, it's just a simple either drag and drop, or I can actually upload and bring in an actual file. Okay. Once that's done, I can simply click on, oops, I haven't configured my bullet here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back, and I'm going to create this again. Let me see if I can do here low miles. Won't last. There we go. Yeah, we'll make that red. Preview. Nice. Okay. I can go ahead and hit next on here. And then regarding the ad size we talked about with the line ads is that I do have the ability to select these. So if it is up to 25 words by itself, which is this is the case in this case, then I will keep $10. If it was an image, that also in turn changes the rate up there. I'm going to maintain that as the up to 25 words. The ad color, I'm going to say I need a little spot color in there. There we go. The frequency is again 1 time. Now here's where my position. This is where it's important regarding the placement. So from the ad position itself, I could say automotive. And remember our special section also allowed me to say autos, cars. Okay. I can put some notes in there if I wanted to. Notice that it does automatically calculate that one line, the words that I have in there, the characters. So that's actually very helpful too from the adjustment standpoint. If I click on next, this is what I was referring to earlier regarding that selecting of adjustments. If I did need to adjust and say that there's going to be more than 20 words, which in this case there isn't, I was very, very short with the amount of information I put in there. But if I did have an adjustment, I could easily put that in. Again, this is set up on the back end by your administrators. And then that information itself would automatically calculate the adjustment amount and give you that new rate. Okay. If I go ahead and I hit next from here, these are all test custom fields. You probably have a few on your site as well here. And then from the next, I've got my sales rep. I have who the billing contact is, the production contact. I can simply choose the scheduling of this. Actually, let's make it September, and then hit next. Okay, this is going to allow me, because of the fact that this is a classified ad and I've put the information in, if I wanted to at this point, because this isn't necessarily a proposal, right? I've probably got the guy right on the phone, or the person's coming to my office and he actually wants to place the ad right there. I can easily create the invoice right from here. This is going to also ask me which template that I want to use. And notice again we have quite a few in here, but I know which one we're going to use here, this Organic Delights. I'll hit select, and this is going to generate. I've got an invoice, and I now know with this invoice itself, which is the one that I just generated, got a lot of test ones in there, but this is the one I just generated, I can actually pay this invoice right here, right from the screen. Okay. All right, now let's do this. Let's actually go back now, since we did the classified line ads, let's take a look at the classified display ads and what the difference is there. If I go into the new order, and I'm going to do print again, and I'm going to select newspaper, and click next. And this time I'm going to use the classified display ad before we use the line ads. This time it's the display ad. And simply click on the next button. This is now, remember, a quantity-based rate card. So this allows me, if I say from an ad size, if I'm going, let's say, let's just say for either 1 zone or 2 zone, 3 zones. See if I'm doing 1 zone here, and it's going to be this time in black and white, or 1-time frequency. I have my columns, but remember, I added to that rate card that were going to be available. So if I added it, if I made it a 2-column, and then my inches, which are also represented here, let's say it's a 1.75, that's going to show me my columns and inches, and in addition, it will also show me the rate. I can also put in that ad position again. Let's say we'll stick with automotive. and go in there and actually say, let's see, automotive used, there we go, or just cars. And I have the ability to put in, if there's a production charge or actual quantity, I can do that as well. But this is calculating here, again, off of the quantity-based rate card and that logic. Simply click on Next. I have that initial rate. Can I still adjust it if I wanted to? You absolutely can. I can click on Next. There's our custom information. So my sales rep, I know my billing person, my production person. I can choose what issue this is for, and click on Next. Once again, because this is a classified setup, and because of the nature of the way this rate card is set up, I have the ability to immediately create an invoice. Once again, just selecting my template, and it'll take me right there so I can receive payment. Now let's take a look a little bit on the actual templates. Now from the template itself, there are some additional items now that must be included on the template. And when I'm talking about templates, hopefully everyone knows what a template is. The template is the information, be it from a proposal standpoint or from an invoice standpoint, that actually shows what is being sold and some additional values in there, some additional data. In this case of the proposal template, I'm using the Organic Delights. I already know that this should be showing me what I need. I'm going to go in here to this print block on the upper left-hand side, and note that we now have add columns and add inches in here as an available template. Now, what's important to note about this is that if you did have both types of rate cards, if you had both the classified line ads, which again is using the HTML and text, or just the classified display ads, which is just using the columns and inches and actually not using image or HTML, you can still use the same template. And the reason for that, remember, is because in our templates, if you do see this little icon next to the value, that is a collapse function. And that collapse function means that if there is no value that's being brought in, meaning you're not using columns and inches, it would not show up for the client to see. So instead of receiving like a blank space, you don't want to see that. So this is actually set as collapse, so there's add columns and add inches. And in addition to that, you can even have the total columns inches in there as well. Obviously, if you use a classified display ad, you most likely will have these visible, the columns and the inches, as well as the column inches. Okay, I'm going to go back here just for a second, and right here from down. Now, after we've created the order itself from the classified standpoint, there are a couple of items in which, first of all, you do know that you can run, obviously, the sales run sheet, which will allow you to actually see that information according to the product. And the product in this case would be newspaper. You can also obviously run reports from the side of being able to see it from a ad position as well as from the rate card. But where this really starts getting into the kind of flow, what we're going to do from the template side, is that you can see it also from the ad manager as well as the production run sheet. And just to kind of show you from the ad manager standpoint, and again up here from production itself, if I click on ad manager, and I can decide to choose my particular product, in this case we'll choose newspaper. And we know that there is a 2016, and let's say for September, if I hit search here, I do see that there are some listings in here, and I can see also that from the ad size itself, I can differentiate that this is the display, column and inch. I also have one that's for up to 25 words, which again, from the up to 25 words itself, is actually showing that this is the line ad, okay? And again, the job jacket is also going to give me some additional information. Very important to remember within the job jacket is how everything flows within our site. So anything that was put in at the time of the insertion order should also flow over here. And specifically what I want to talk about is in the ad details area. Remember beforehand with the ad details, if you're not using a classified rate card, the position required as well as the special section is going to be a little bit different, right? It would most likely be your inside front cover, inside back cover, or from a section standpoint where they want to place it. But for classifieds, remember the position required is what coincides with that upsell position in the old rate card. This is automotive. That's our main heading. And then the special section as well. So again, helping your production team take a look at this and saying, okay, I know this is for a newspaper, and I also know that in regards to in regards to what type of rate card it is. This is a line ad. I know that it's actually dealing with words. Okay. Now, what really starts to kind of kick off from the flow standpoint is the actual production run sheet. And the production run sheet itself, which is again available under the production dropdown, the production run sheet would allow you to run, in this case I've run it according to August of 2016. It's a different ad itself. We do see that in this case I have up to 25 words with an image. And what will happen here is that at the bottom of the page, excuse me one second here, I'm having a little bit of a screen issue, there we go. Whenever you're running the production run sheet and you're trying to prep this or getting this ready to insert into your Adobe InDesign and have that built out in the template itself, you want to run the run sheet and just include in those particular items, the ones that you want to bring into the template itself. Very easy if you're just running it according to the product or according to just the classified product itself. You're only going to get those back. Down there at the very bottom, there is an options listing. And the options listing has the print report, export to CSV, and then the export to XML as well as save column setup. With the export to XML, this is what you're going to use as a tool to pull the data out from the run sheet into a nice package which basically will contain not only the template information but also the XML with all of the production run sheet data in which you're going to need to populate your template with. So the way that this works is that if I did export this out to XML, on your site, and we're going to talk about what's required to have the template here in just a little bit, but on our test site here you can see that there are templates that are available here. Okay. You'll see also a couple of different extensions. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But when you're getting ready to export that information out, you do want to select the template that has been built from our tech team on, and obviously from guidance from you on what you need in your template. It will actually be built on your site. So that information will be available as a drop-down value to use. Now, very important about that is that you do have the ability, once you've selected that template, to actually export that out as either a 7-zip file or a RAR file. Now, what are 7-zip files? What are RAR files? If you've used WinRAR before or WinZip, it's basically an extraction or compression utility. Now, we do actually extract that out normally. It probably works the best as a 7-zip, and both of those products themselves are free. You should be able to get a free version of those, just either WinRAR or for 7-zip itself. There are some links here. If you do not have that available on your machine, and most folks will. I do know that Windows 10 users might already have an internal extraction or compression utility. If you do get a chance, though, definitely try to get the 7-zip. It seems to work the best. What this is going to do, though, is it's going to actually create that file, and that file itself will be it will contain both the XML. It will also include any image information if we have it uploaded in an image, as well as the template. Now, what's going to happen here is that by extracting that, you're going to see that, let's say in this case, we actually have a template here, and in addition we have, let's say for that one ad we just saw in August, we have a picture of a Honda. We also have the XML. This is what the XML file looks like. Now, the way that this works, though, is that if you do, and I've actually got InDesign up right now, this file itself does bring in, and you can see here with this Honda 2000, it allows us to up tier the file. We would open the actual template first. So that file that I had open there, right here, this file is open first. That again is a template that we're going to be building out with you. And then once the template is open, you then expand it out and import in the XML. So that importing into the XML would actually be for this file itself. What I'm going to do here is I've had this up just to show you, but I am going to actually try to import one in here just to kind of show you a few items. Also note, too, that when you do import the information in on this test data, what I wound up doing here is that all these little red question marks up here at the top, this is just basically a missing source. And what that means is it's looking for a particular EPS, which is encapsulated PostScript image itself. Again, it's sort of an Adobe, if you're familiar with Adobe InDesign, if you happen to have some main headings or some main either header or footers, you can actually have that built into the template itself. What we did in this case is, and I'm just going to actually just kind of close, let me see if I can open this one up here. Give me one sec, bring that back up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open up that template. Okay, this is a basic or bare template. Right, and once again, that basic or bare template itself, again, just normal generalized information with the position, the section, as well as the title text in here. With this template, I can then go back up into File, and from File, I can import in the XML. The XML itself can be brought in, and it's going to be bringing you in some import options. And this import options information here, which we'll provide as well, is that these are certain data labelings that need to actually be set up. And depending on what you have in your template, each one could be a little bit different. It does either remove some of the framing or remove some of the excess information that's not needed or that needs to be stripped from the XML. If we go ahead and we hit OK here, this does bring the data in once again. You can see that that information that was exported out originally from the August listing, which had the Honda 2000, and I believe what we could do here is just from a view standpoint. Let me just go ahead and zoom in just a little bit so you can see that. Okay, so in this case here, we actually use the red heading for sale. We've got the actual Honda information in here, as well as the image. One thing that to note is that when this is brought in to the system itself, each template is going to be a little bit different. And the templates themselves, when it comes to building those out, your framework might be a little bit different as well. Like, for example, up here at the very top, when we talked about these kind of missing images, if you do have a template that's set for always having a particular logo in or a particular footer in, we can build that out that way. That's not a problem. The other item to note on this is that when we're dealing with templates, keep in mind that you can have more than one template. Some folks will actually have a template for just their quote-unquote basic classified needs, and then they also have a different template for maybe a different product line or a different edition line. So just kind of keep that in mind. That is something that you are absolutely able to do as well, and you would just be working with our design team on that. Okay. Now, the other action itself when it comes to with InDesign is keeping in mind that it's very important to try to be on the latest version of InDesign. And the latest version of InDesign itself is actually through the Creative Cloud. Creative Cloud it's a cloud-based set of software suites from Adobe. And I believe that you're probably looking at it's about $20 a month for one user on that, but it does need to be the latest and greatest. The reason for that is we try to, from our developer standpoint, we try to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information there so that we're able to accommodate all types of templates. One question that has come up beforehand is for you Mac users, or if any of you Mac users are not using InDesign, if you're using Quark, unfortunately we cannot build templates out with Quark. So just kind of keep that in mind. You'll have to eventually do some upgrading on there, but InDesign Creative Cloud is actually the latest and greatest. So when it comes to the information that we need from you, let me just kind of show you here. In regards, and again, this is information that you can also get from your software consultant, but to get started, well, to properly ensure that we make sure that we're providing exactly what is needed from the standpoint of a classified and what we can offer you, we need to obtain a current Adobe InDesign template. And we're going to highly recommend, as I said before, that latest version of Adobe InDesign. Again, it's a Creative Cloud, and the format extension of the template, receive it, we should be in an INDD format. We have used IDML past, but keep in mind the analogy I like to use on that is if you're familiar with Microsoft Word, and you know what a .doc file is. Now there's a .docx, DOCX. We can work with those, but we'd highly prefer the INDD if at all possible. In addition to that, you need to have a recent PDF of your published edition, specifically detailing the classifieds. Okay, now this is going to be, again, leveraged by our tech team, and it's going to be, it'll take a look at the actual frames. It'll actually talk about the styles that you're using. One other thing to note on that as well is that with the styles and with the way that the placement is, those visual representations in a PDF form are going to be in addition to that INDD file. We can't just, we won't be able to work off of just the PDF. We have to have both the template as well as the PDF example there of your published edition. Number 3 is the list of all ad sizes being used for your classified ads. And that means the column and inches options. And in addition to that, the fonts. And therefore, all fonts are using a template. The issue with fonts is this, is that we have quite a few items in the font library that we're able to use, but sometimes you might have a specific font that's proprietary or something that you've actually designed in-house. We do need access to those fonts. Pretty self-explanatory, just to make sure that the template looks exactly the way that you want it, exactly the way that you're actually used to, and especially for your clientele is used to. Number 5 here is all positions. Those are the main headings. Remember, we talked about with positions the main headings as well as the sections. Those are the sub-listings. They're underneath the main headings. As I said, automotive or used cars. Can you always edit those? Can you go down and you can actually add some additional items on there? You can. One caveat on that is that if you do add additional listings to that rate card, and you're adding additional positions or sections, we do need to tweak your template when that's the case. So we do want to make sure that we have all that information. If you can, unless you're planning on a brand new demographic for classifieds, we just want to make sure that we have as much of that information as possible. It'll help that be as seamless as possible too when we build the template out instead of having to go back in and tweak it. And then very important is number 6, and that's identifying a point of contact on your team. Okay, and the reason for this is that this contact's role, and normally 99% of the time this is going to be someone from your production team who is familiar with InDesign, who is actually running the ad trafficking from your site itself, is that with the building of the template itself, there are going to be some questions, and there's going to be some back and forth when it comes to testing this template, or how does this look, or do you want this to maybe tweak a little bit more, that sort of thing. So very important to identify someone in that role, and that actually cuts down significantly on the amount of time that the actual final template takes. Now, for a time standpoint, for expectation, the initial template can usually be deployed on the site, assuming that we have all the system requirements and all that information in from you, within 7 to 10 business days. So that means added into that production run sheet information in which you can export that out. Okay, this does vary according to the complexity of the file. So just sort of keep that in mind as well. Again, until we actually see the template that's being provided to us with all of the different requirements and additional information that's bundled in there as stated above, we won't be able to give you an actual definitive ETA. So we do have to actually see that first and then build that out, and then there's actually a little bit of back and forth on that. But normally 7 to 10 business days for that initial template. And again, we're going to be with you the entire way. So if you do have any questions in regards to the setup, in regards to the actual template itself, we'll be able to send you out the system requirements. Any of your software consultants will be able to send that information to you. Now, one thing to also note here from the side of InDesign is that from the images themselves, if you're very big into adding the images into the actual insertion order, so people are coming in if they're providing their own images, or if you're doing the images themselves, the size of the actual template when it actually opens up with that XML information can vary. If you have many, many different ads that are being put in and all of them have lots and lots of images, and they're either They're either saved not as a JPEG or they're saved as something else, like a bitmap or some very, very large file. It does take a little bit longer for the template to open up. That's just going to be the nature of the business. That's the way that it is. So you want to kind of keep that in mind. That's just like everything. You know, do your due diligence when it comes to the actual size of the images themselves. But that being said, there's a lot that you can do. It's a very, very flexible system. The most important thing to remember here is if you do set up a new classified rate card, whether it's the display ad that uses the column inch, or if it's the line ads that uses the HTML and text, it's okay to go in there and test it and to play around with that. One of the nice features about this entire initiative itself has been, and I can say with great certainty here, has been the quick pay. And just that quick pay option from within a classified role. If you remember, you know, taking the classifieds themselves and being able to take them on the phone and or either have somebody come up and giving you the information for the classified, they want to pay right then and there. And so it is nice to be able to have the rate card set up accordingly, putting that information in. And remember, when you're doing it like that from a contract standpoint, as soon as that has become a contract in our system, production's aware of it, and like you said, billing's available. Like I said, billing's available as well there by doing that quick invoice. Okay. So again, I would highly recommend going in, taking a look at setting this up with your software consultant, whether it's myself, whether it is Karen or Mark or Mary Kate. Please reach out to us again via the Time Trade link, found again under the help area. Other than that, it looks like we're a little bit under here, but that's basically it for the actual initiative itself. We look forward to talking to you about it. Again, we're here to help you, and remember, we're here to work smarter, not harder. So thank you very much for your time today, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great day.